Alex, we are close to the college football season when the rankings start coming. Yeah, the rankings are out for the coaches poll at least. I'm sure we'll get the AP 25 very, very soon. I mean, I'm sure it has to be
today
like
or
this,
tomorrow.
Yeah, this week sometime. Drum roll for the top team in the country. There's no way anybody will guess this team, especially that is watching this in Atlanta. It is the Georgia Bulldogs. The only thing that I think you could say, the only other team I think that has any argument would be the Ohio State Buckeyes. I think talent for talent, they're the only team that can match up. And, sometimes I feel like they like to just put a team that's not in the SEC just to start the season, right? Because it's the top 10 is probably going to be dominated.
Every coach outside of the SEC hates the SEC
so I feel like that
reasons.
happens a lot, but Georgia gets the top spot, Ohio State number 2. I think that's right. I think in the top 10, there's not going to be too many arguments, but when we get to the end, I think we will have a few. Oregon 3, Texas 4, Alabama 5. Agree with that. Ole Miss 6. Don't really have a problem. Then you get to 7, 8, 9, and 10. 7 Notre Dame, 8 Michigan, 9 Penn State, 10 Florida State. 7, 8, 9 in particular, I don't hate any of them, but like Michigan, wouldn't have in my top 10 after all the talent they lost and Jim Harbaugh. Notre Dame, I think, is too high, but Notre Dame always feels like they're getting ranked too high, and we'll see very soon when they go to College Station what they are made of. Penn State, number 9. I mean, they finish number 9 every single year, so I guess it is a good thing. But that team, they don't scare anybody.
They're the least scary top 10 team that's consistently in the top 10
They're the UFC, like the fighting. They like to call certain guys like gatekeepers for championship fights. They're guys that have been around. They'll never compete for a championship.
They're 4A guys.
Yeah, they'll never compete for a championship. They're ranked like 4 or 5. Yeah. They always lose to the best guys, but they can like knock off a guy that's a contender. They like to throw them in. Yeah. Are you a legit contender? We're going to throw you against like Curtis Blades.
Yeah,
and then it's like that's exactly what Penn State is.
Great comparison, because that is exactly who Penn State has been and will always be under James Franklin. The team that they have this year is significantly less talented in terms of an NFL roster than it was last year. Now, the only reason for hope that Drew Allard is going to end up being the second coming of Jesus Christ or something, because they're running a prehistoric offense up there in Penn State. I don't quite understand why James Franklin keeps bang his head against the wall and not change up his system. They're still running that ugly Big Ten Iowa offense.
It's LSU, and
they just get more talented guys, so they're just a glorified Iowa offense. That's all they are. But I will say, I don't have a problem with Notre Dame. The one thing I did want to note, one team in the top 10 that's not the SEC or the Big Ten that isn't Notre Dame. Now, obviously, if Notre Dame joins a conference, it'll probably be the Big Ten. So we could just go ahead and zoom. One team, Florida State, 10th. One team in the top 10 not in the SEC or the Big Ten. This is the new college football, folks. This is what's going to happen, and this is a good projection of what a playoff, a college football playoff, 12-team playoff is going to look like. Lots of SEC, lots of Big Ten.
And if this continues to be the case, which I think we both believe, unless something changes. I mean, we've already heard murmurs about Florida State and Clemson leaving.
So let's even take away Florida State, and then the next highest team is Utah. That's in the Big 12, and that is a huge problem. They're 13. Utah is the highest non-ACC, SEC, or Big Ten team, and that conference is going to get an automatic bye. Sorry to relate this back to the college football playoff, but that's a huge problem.
The issue that we talked about.
That's a huge problem.
And I think the two issues that we've talked about at length with the college football playoff that need to be fixed, that don't make any sense. They don't make any sense. I don't even understand why we have to do an experiment where we know the answer, right? You do not need to have an automatic bid for the group of 5. If they get into the top 12 on their own, they 100% deserve it. They go, if Tulane goes undefeated and they're ranked 12, or UCF. I mean, listen, there's been plenty of teams that have done that. UCF did it. They were like 5th. Cincinnati, they were like top 10. Like, you can do it the right way. You just have to earn it and go undefeated. I don't need to see 12 or 10-2 Tulane that lost to Liberty and Utah State in the college football playoff to get blown out by Georgia at home. Like, correct. What are we doing here? Like, you're taking a spot from a team that may actually make that game competitive.
Actually deserve it.
Yeah. I mean, it may.
You're talking to me about a Georgia team that, I expect them to win all those games, Texas, Bama, Ole Miss. But that, that kind of triage of where it's like, we played 3 top 5 teams and lost all 3 games. You're telling me that 3-loss team doesn't have or you could say the same thing about the Big Ten, a team that loses to Oregon, Ohio State, and, a Michigan or a
Penn State. They have a chance. And the other thing, though, was the Big 12, right? The Big 12 does not deserve an automatic bid. Like, if they earn it, by being in the top 4, which you can do with your schedule. Like if Utah runs the table, right? If they go undefeated this season, I don't think that'll happen. They will be a top 4 team in the country. And if they're number 5, they're number 5. They still play a game at home to move on into the thing against the crappy 12 seed that's going to be your Tulane at 10-2. So like, I totally agree. There's those two things. It just blows my mind. It's like, oh, we have to do this. Like,
I want to say one
more. It's like giving Little League trophies.
FSU at 10 here. All the coaches thinking that it's surprising to me. That means they like Mike Norvell. That means that they believe in Mike Norvell and what he's doing at Florida State because they graduated as much talent as any team in football last year.
I'm a believer too. I'm a believer.
We'll see.
I saw it firsthand 2 years in a row. I know they had more talent than they're going to have this year, but I'm a believer in Norvell. I like Florida State. I hope, honestly, Florida State and Clemson, come on over to the SEC, man. Like, let's bring it on, baby. I love the competition. I think that's happening sooner than we may think, especially after what we just talked about.